Hey everybody, it's Thursday night. It's the second Thursday. It's Community Connections with Bridget and Jen. Hey Jen, you want to tell us who our well, I'm out of
Hello,
habit. Hey
Bridget.
Jen
Welcome to
Miller.
the show.
Hey Jen Miller, would you like to tell everyone who our guest is?
Absolutely. Our guest tonight is Miriam Goldman, and she is a developer, actually a lead developer for a company called Pond Stone. Sorry, that's a digital marketing company in Ottawa. And so we're so excited to have you on the show, Miriam, to represent Ottawa and talk to us about what you've been doing at WordCamps all over the United States and Canada, and maybe even beyond that. I'm not sure. As you kind of furthered WordPress in your own way with women and panel discussions. So that, plus I know you're involved in many other communities. You're a sensei, well, we'll get into that during the interview, but just wanted to quickly introduce you. Do you have anything you want to say to add to that before we go on?
No, you pretty much covered. Just covering the Canadian bases up here, up in the north, where we are getting winter 5.0, as we like to call it, this weekend. So that's going to be fun.
So, what are you doing? Are you doing any kind of prep work? Taking cover?
I'm just basically making sure that I haven't packed away my winter coat and my winter boots.
How about for your home? Do you need to?
I rent an apartment, so it's pretty much as long I just make sure that the rental unit has basically salted everything, and so I don't slip when I walk into the building.
Well, good. And do you work remotely, or do you work?
No, I work in an office, so it's about a 10-minute bus ride from where I live. So, but we're a pretty small company right now. There's 5 of us with a 6th person on mat leave. So we're pretty small, but it's a good environment and everything.
Well, great. But it does mean that you have to ensure you have those salted rows.
Exactly. And I bus, so luckily I don't have to worry about the driving, but
yeah,
it's pretty much just I have to be like, okay, if there's a snowstorm or if there's a lot of ice, I take a little bit longer to get to work. That's all.
And do you bus for ethical reasons, or do you bus just because that's what's convenient?
I bus because it's convenient, and also I found that I was a very anxious driver in my 20s, so I let my license lapse, and I just haven't gone to get it again just because the public transit gets me pretty much where I need to go 90% of the time, and then I ride share when I need to.
That's excellent. Well, and you can also say that you're reducing your carbon footprint. So
exactly.
It works on all levels, except for when you need to get somewhere fast and wish that you had been able to drive there. I'm sure. But.
Yeah, but then I just take an Uber or a Lyft.
Yeah, there you go. So you get there. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. One of the things that Bridget has told me about you is that not only are you very involved in the WordPress community, which we will definitely be talking about tonight, but you are also involved in your local community, and that you are the only woman in your dojo, and that
I'm not the
sensei.
Only woman, and that you're a sensei. A sensei?
Yes, I am. So I'm not the only woman.
Okay.
The only woman sensei.
Oh, I was missing a keyword. Sorry.
Well, probably wouldn't say I'm the only one. I'm the only one who actually goes and teaches, because at our school, once you get your black belt, you are considered a sensei. But I am probably, out of all the women who are black belts who are senseis at my school, at least a particular location, I'm the one who does the most teaching. Like, I went in tonight. I didn't teach tonight, but I usually teach on Mondays and Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes Thursdays. And so I just show up if my sensei, my instructor, needs my help. He's just like, Sensei Miriam, work with these white belts today, or work with these brown belts. And I mainly teach kids, but I teach the adults too sometimes. Like, my brother just started karate, so I've been teaching him sometimes.
Oh, cool.
That's great. And how does it make you feel teaching the kids or the adults, this new skill?
It makes me feel good because there's something that you see in their face when they get something. Like, even if you're just like showing them how to do a punch and how to basically move your hands correctly, and when it clicks, they just get it, and just the happiness that you see, it makes you feel good. And it also helps you learn as well, because you have to think about, okay, am I showing this the right way? And it makes you work harder because you have to showcase the skills properly, and you have to really like get into the proper stance, do the punch correctly, do the kick correctly. Because if you do it incorrectly, your students are going to learn incorrectly, and then it just becomes a very, very vicious cycle.
Right. Well, and oftentimes I would imagine that you're mirroring the students, so you're having to do it
backwards
at them and still achieve the same results. So that's got to be its own challenge as well.
It took a while to be able to learn the mirroring skill, but once I've mirrored it, I use it, except some students like when I work beside them. So they just look off to the side and they see what I do beside them. So I just basically ask the student, whether it's a kid or an adult, I'm like, would you prefer I come in front of you, or do you prefer I go beside you? And we just go from there.
Oh, that's cool. So what got you into karate? Like, how did you start that?
So I was visiting my uncle in Winnipeg in 2007, and we were taking some pictures going around the legislative, and I looked at the pictures and I wasn't happy with how I looked, and I was just not feeling well. So one of my friends who I had worked with at a grocery store a couple of years back had asked me to come to her area of town to do a kickboxing class, but I'm like, nope, let me research what's around my place. So I found my dojo and I started doing the cardio kickboxing class, and I only did that for 2 months. And then I was always watching the karate class, which was right before my class, and I'm like, that looks cool. I like that. I'm going to try it, because I was like, let's try something new. And then here I am almost 11 years later.
11 years later, that's amazing. So that's a life discipline for you. Obviously, you're a black belt. So,
yeah.
And you were talking about how learning to mirror and was a little bit challenging for you when you were getting ready to teach. But Bridget tells me that there's, and you also mentioned when you were just talking about karate being kind of like a dance or something like that. Or Bridget, you may have said that.
Yeah.
But she mentioned that you also do something to do with dance.
Yes, I'm head of Latin ballroom dancer in the Pro-Am categories, which, if you want to think about it, it's like Dancing with the Stars, but for non-celebrities.
Very fun. And so do you get to wear the gowns and what kind of shoes do you wear? How do you?
I have to wear high heels. So the women normally wear high heels, at least the adults. The kids wear like low, like maybe half an inch, but traditionally women wear at least 2.5-inch heels. But if you're younger like me, you wear 2.5-inch heels, and you get to wear all the fancy dresses and everything. I think on my Twitter account, there's a picture of me in my dress.
Yeah.
I think it's a still from my last competition, if I remember correctly.
It's a really beautiful blue dress, I think.
It's actually purple.
Oh.
Which is the blue one. It's a purple dress for my dance competitions.
Yeah. Purple. I see.
Okay.
So like, I feel like we kind of glossed over your karate a little bit. I want to go a kind of deeper. So you started it because you wanted to be more physical. You wanted for fitness, right? But what about that journey from white belt to black? Second degree?
Third degree.
Third degree. Okay. What about the journey from white to third degree black belt has changed, like maybe some of your character or your confidence? Does any of that? Was there any transformation internally?
Oh, definitely. I suffered greatly from self-confidence and self-esteem issues as a kid, and actually into my teens and my early 20s. And I didn't think about it when I started karate, but as I got into it, and I started bonding with my training partners, because you meet up with people at a belt level and you progress with the levels together, and you get the satisfaction like, I can do that. And then as you get up higher, you learn how to spar, you learn how to take people down and do hip throws and everything. And that's kind of like, I can do that. And then it just, as I got higher up in the ranks, it just was like, okay, I'm making friends. This is cool. It's not just physical exercise. I'm making friends. This is making me feel better. And when I went through some job transitions in the past couple of years, the self-confidence helped carry me into my interviews. And if I hadn't been doing karate for so long, I don't think I would be as successful as I am right now.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome because, as you know, a lot of us in the tech field have imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Because we don't have belts. There's no belt. There's no certificate unless you take a Google class.
Yeah, and I still have imposter syndrome when it comes to web development and being a leader in the WordPress community, but I have to remind myself that it's like, no, you belong here. So I have to try and take my confidence and self-esteem from my martial arts and apply it to the other areas of my life, which is hard sometimes, but I would say I'm successful about 95% of the time.
That's definitely successful.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us could learn from that.
That's what I'm saying.
A new situation, we roll back to baby stepping, right?
Yeah.
But Bridget, maybe we need to take up karate.
Well, I was thinking about Taekwondo, but yeah.
Any martial art, like judo, taekwondo, aikido, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, whatever.
You did a video in your JavaScript dress at Miami.
Yes. The game show was very, very full, and I'm like not comfortable sitting in big crowds like that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to enjoy the sun. So I was talking with Tara and everything, and I'm like, you know what? I was watching Michelle from Minneapolis do her workout. I'm like, hey, I just learned a new kata. I need to practice it. So I'm thinking kind of badly, but I'm like, let's make everybody back home a bit jealous and do it underneath the palm tree. So I got Tara, who's from Hallway Chats, to video me. And I'm just like, okay, let's practice this kata. But then I realized I'm like, I'm doing kicks in a dress. This may not have been the best decision, but let's roll with it.
Oops, what happened to Jen? Technology's hard. But okay, so here's the thing that I loved about that is that you're bringing who you are, right, into WordPress. And WordPress is changing because of that.
Yeah. And
you're not saying, oh, I'm not, like a lot of people do yoga. A lot of people, have a fitness routine. And I think that, for me, when I met you in Ottawa and you were talking about that, I thought, this is great because we need hobbies that kind of reinforce things that we're good at. Because a lot of times people start programming because it was a hobby. I mean, what made you start programming?
A lack of friends growing up and the fact that I love Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. Interesting.
It was 1997 is when I started coding back on GeoCities and Tripod and Angel Fire. And so at the time I had gotten into Sailor Moon in 1995. So I was in Sailor Moon chat rooms, and I had we did role play, and I was a Sailor Scout and everything. So I made a site all about myself, which is long gone, super defunct. And then I got into Star Trek about a year later. And so I did Star Trek role play. So I built websites for my ship and my captain and everything. So kind of geeky, but that's what essentially got me into it, because it was okay, none of my friends want to hang out, and I've done my homework, and nothing good's on TV. So
Why not?
Hey, look, I'm going to do this on the internet because my dad got the internet. Back in 95, I think, I remember the excitement of going from the 36.6 to the 56K modem. And then the excitement of, for my bat mitzvah, when I got a Intel computer, I forget which one it was back then, and my dad was
Pentium 2.
Yeah, Pentium 2, and he was jealous, so I got his 46, and he took my Pentium.
That's awesome.
So, Dad, if you're watching about this, I still remember that, but it all worked out. I have a MacBook Air now.
Nice.
Well, there you go. Well, it all works out. You know, it's funny that you mentioned the role playing. I don't know if you know the theme for WordCamp Orange County this year. Have you heard?
I think I saw about that. It's something along that line. So
it's designers and developers, on a D&D thing.
D&D.
Oh, nice.
I don't know anything about role playing, so I missed the tutorial. Literally, we had a tutorial that I asked for, and then I was sick. So
Dave Margowski pulled together the group and walked us all through the steps, except for Bridget, and I wasn't there either. But luckily, I played it in 7th grade, so I kind of have a little inkling. So.
Yeah, I didn't actually play D&D. Ours was like a text-based role play, so we were in chat rooms, and so it was just like you had a character. Like,
yeah,
right, yeah.
I was a captain of a ship, but I don't even remember. It was a while ago.
That is so awesome. It's funny because mine is similar, but for different reasons. So I got on AOL, and in 1995, and before I ever went to church or any Bible study at all with real humans, I was in a Bible study in a chat room.
Oh, awesome.
So, and I did the music because I could type the fastest. So I would just type out all the lyrics. Ding, 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 ding. And people ask me, no, but seriously, for introverts, it's really hard to get in to join. I'm not a joiner. So it's taken a lot of practice for me to do that. And that's, that's why I became interested in computers, because I could kind of wordsmith my way around things. I wouldn't say anything awkward because I could think about it and then type what I want, and I made a bunch of friends there. And then, that translated into social media, blah, 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 blah. And here we all are, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is, in a perfect world, Miriam has her own dojo, only they're not white belts in karate. They're white belts in WordPress. What's your advice?
My advice is, and this is what I tell the students, and I even tell this no matter what rank they are, even if I'm working with another black belt who maybe I'm teaching them a kata I just learned, is don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Oh my gosh. Could you just please say that one more time?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because it's really the only way you're going to learn.
For the audience, you need to pause and think about that. This is the thing that I think we all struggle with. I find this commonality with all of us in tech. I'm not a programmer, but I'm still in tech, and there's this level of perfectionism that can sometimes be so paralyzing. And that's why you inspire me, because you're this is a kata, you're just learning, and you're putting it on the internet for all of us to see. We don't know if you're doing it wrong or not, but that vulnerability is so encouraging. I love that so much. I saw that and I just was almost to tears. It moved my being. So thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. It was mainly just to show my sensei back home that I'm like, see, I'm practicing this. I'm missing in class, but I'm practicing my kata. I'm not just sitting on the beach, which I did after the camp was over. But see, I'm practicing, and I'm being a good black belt, and I'm being a good example. So It was mainly to be like, see, I'm practicing it. And I watched it back. I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. Okay, let's post it.
Fantastic. Well, and you did more at that WordCamp than the Acada. You also led a women's panel, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I moderated the Women in WordPress panel.
Exactly. So that was another instance where you had to say to the women, probably, don't be afraid. Everyone makes mistakes. We're just going to talk and see where this goes, unless you had a scripted plan.
No, we had chatted once we had gotten together the panel. We had gotten into Slack and through email, and we had decided that, okay, this is the time we have. So I kind of arbitrarily said, I'm like, okay, here are 2 prepared questions I would like you to think about. And then we're going to open it to audience questions, because based on previous panels, there's always a lot of audience questions. So I had to kind of judge based on past experience. So I had 2 questions. I believe one was, what advice do you wish you had been given when you gotten started in WordPress? And the second question was, how can we make women feel welcomed and included in group settings?
Good questions.
So it was different than the ones that I had done in the past, kind of like, what were your biggest challenges? What were your biggest successes, and how did you get started in WordPress? I figured that with an abbreviated time, we couldn't really get into that. So if people wanted to know, they could just come up and chat with us afterwards.
Yeah.
And how did you find that went? Since you were using new questions, some new groups of people, and you were having more audience questions. Did you like that format better, or?
I did. I liked basically having a few questions prepared. And this way, it was just, we didn't have to go through everything all the time. And it's always good to see what the audience is wondering about, what questions are on their minds, because maybe we mentioned something in the prepared questions and that made them think about something. And it's a perfect avenue for people to raise their questions there and then.
Were there some answers or some of the things that surprised you, or were there commonalities through the different 4 or 5 panels that you did last year?
I would say there's definitely a lot of commonalities. A lot, again, imposter syndrome came up a lot. About not giving up, that's another thing that came up. And a lot of men were asking, how can we help and how can we be better allies to women in this field?
That's interesting, because that's a question we get a lot with Women Who WP from men, is they want to know, how can I be more supportive?
Yeah.
And we're organized to support women, but we support anyone who needs support in WordPress. That's kind of what women do in life, but it's also what we do in WordPress. And that's why, we started Women Who WP, was just to provide that the support of environment for people. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, when I heard about that, I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm hoping to find the time to get a chapter started up here in Ottawa. And I think it might be the first Canadian chapter of Women Who WP.
Awesome.
That would be awesome.
I'm working on it.
We have one in Europe now.
Ah, nice.
In the Netherlands. So very excited about that, and we're excited about them when they're in the States as well. But there's something about that expansion into other countries, I think, that just
the international, and because it's great, because I met Francesca in Seattle for the first time. I saw her in Miami, and she's from Italy, and it's just so great to meet people from other countries, because if I hadn't done this, I would just be sitting here in my own little bubble in Ottawa, and that almost actually what happened if I hadn't decided to take the advice of 2 people who I will, I guess, name drop, who helped, I guess, push me to speaking more, and that's Sean Hooper here in Ottawa and Catherine Presner from Montreal.
Yeah, that sounds like them.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what they do.
Yeah, no, I spoke for the first time at WordCamp Ottawa 2016. I did a lightning talk on what I guess could be a very hot topic here in Ottawa, creating a multilingual site, and the battle between two free plugins. And I was unprepared for the Q&A, so I left thinking I did a horrible job. And so both Sean and Catherine encouraged me to just don't give up. You can speak again. At the time, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then Rick Radko had asked me to, he's like, hey, can you come to the meetup? Are you free this particular Wednesday? Can you redo your WordCamp presentation? I thought, okay, sure. And then I went, and my computer decided to go on the fritz when I was connecting to the projector.
I've had that happen.
Yep. So I did everything from memory, and it went better than the WordCamp. So that's when I figured that, okay, I think I had a lot of advanced people in my WordCamp talk, and I had a lot of beginners at the meetup. So that's where the panel idea came from, is going without any slides and any prepared slides.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I figured that that's how I do it better that way. And then that's where I'm like, hey, if I can handle this, let's do a panel. Let's go forth with this.
What made you think, like, so you did it at your home camp. Like, why did you decide to do it again? Like, where was that impetus?
The reason why I did it at other camps was Montreal was because I wanted to see my friends there, and I have family there because that's where I'm originally from, and it's only 2 hours away, so it's like it's a pretty cheap train ride. So I'm like, okay, I'll go there. I'll get my bagels, get my smoked meat, see my family, come home, all good. And then once I started to feel more comfortable, I'm like, I want to travel. So let's go forth. I'm going to travel. And that's why I decided to apply for Seattle first. And then I was at lunch with some colleagues, and I was just mentioning about it. And they're like, I always said something about New York City, like, you should apply to it. I'm like, okay. And then I applied to Rochester because it meant a road trip with Sean Hooper and Megan Haynes.
Oh, fun.
And then I applied to Miami. And then I had to stop because I'm paying for this out of my own pocket.
You ran out of money. I love that. Wait, your panel was so successful you had to stop because you ran out of money. That is way more than 95% success.
Yeah. Well, I can say,
right?
Yeah. And I can say I was accepted to WordCamp London, the one that's happening this weekend. But unfortunately, I had to decline just because I'm like,
I love it. I'm out of budget, everybody. I'm out of budget.
I'm like, I can't do, the exchange rate is bad because, well, Canadian dollar, but I'm like,
can't ride the train to the UK.
I wish you could. That would be a very fun ride because I'm close to the Atlantic Ocean, so just get me over to the Atlantic provinces. There. So I'm just ready for a Star Trek transporter or a TARDIS from Doctor Who or a Stargate, and then
TARDIS would be good.
TARDIS would be fun.
Yeah, it would be really convenient. So how did you pick the panelists? Like, did you just put feelers out? Like, did people recommend you to people? Like, how did that work?
I actually, New York City, the lead organizer put it together for me, which was fantastic. Rochester, Michelle asked if she could put some people together, and I'm like, great. And then Shanta from Hamilton had asked to be on it, and I'm like, okay, let's add her. Seattle was the fact that Rachel Cherry and I had both applied, and I came up with a great description, no panelist. I believe she did not have a description yet, but she had panelists. So the organizers asked us to merge.
Get on merge.
And then I think we were trying to debate who was going to moderate, and I said, I'm the Canadian. Why don't I do it? And that was actually my first experience. It was either second, because New York City was beforehand, I believe. But it was either my first or second experience moderating a panel, because in Ottawa, Megan had moderated, and I was just a panelist.
Oh, interesting. So how was the experience different, being the moderator versus a panelist for you?
Less talking as the moderator. And so as an introvert, I found that comforting. but I found that I really enjoyed it because I used to work for a PR firm and with the public engagement sector. And so everybody there was like, oh, you should do this. And they facilitated things. So I like to joke with my friends there, because we're still friends, even though most of us no longer work for that company.
Right.
That I learned from you guys through osmosis.
That's awesome.
You're always learning, right?
Exactly.
Bridget mentioned, I just finished up a Google Udacity Grow with Google development course, and it was pretty intense. But it was one of those things where I kind of took that risk, like you were talking about, and decided I was just going to carve out time for it, and made it happen. And it's been a big deal to me because it's not something that is in my norm to do. Yeah. And so.
And like I said, it was like, this is not my norm. And it's actually led to non-WordCamp talking speeches. We had a conference here, like literally 2 days after I got back from Miami, called She's the Change. It was a feminist conference. And somebody had posted, the organizer, Jen Hayward, had posted in a group we called Ladies Who Lunch, saying she was looking for a woman engineer or programmer. And one of my friends tagged me, said, hey, you would be good for this. And then another friend tagged me. And then my sensei's wife said, hey, she would be good at this. So we connected by email, and I gave her a bit of background about myself and what I would be talking about. And she's like, okay, you're in. And so that was my first non-WordCamp, I guess, public speaking experience.
Wow.
And I'm very proud of myself in the fact that I stayed under the time that I was allotted. And it was such a great experience to meet all the women there. Like, every single person who spoke at this conference was so empowering, sharing their own personal stories. And like I said on my Facebook profile picture, I'm like, I guess I'm a public speaker now. And then you, Bridget's like, yeah, you are.
No guessing about that.
No, and then I'm like, I kind of like this. And then I'm like, what has happened to me over the past 2 years?
Oh man, I love that, because once you see something once you try something new, it's like me in travel, and now I have a part-time job at a travel agency, so I see a lot of places I want to go.
Yeah. We work above a travel agency. Our office is right above one. It's like above one of those cruise ship places. So I'm like, I sometimes see advertisements in the window, and I'm like, should I put aside the money, or do I really want to get that new dress, or should I put aside money for the travel and everything? So I hear you, travel. It's like you get bitten by the travel bug, and it's hard to put it aside.
Because for me, it was like overcoming those fears, right? So now you see that you overcame it, just like with your karate. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I did this. Oh, maybe I could do this. Oh, I did it.
I was the same with dancing. It was dance was because when I got my first degree black belt, I was like, okay, I want to try something new. So the women who I had partnered with for my black belt, for like our sparring drills and everything's like, you always talk about watching Dancing with the Stars. Why don't you try a dance class? And so I did. So I did group classes for about a year, and I stopped because I had to go for my next level black belt. I went back, and something wasn't feeling right at the time, so I stopped dance for about 3 years. And then there was a new teacher at the studio that I was at the time, and there was a deal on private lessons for him for new students. He had just been over from Russia for 5-6 months. And so the owner of the studio was like, hey, you want to do this? So take lessons from him. I did the 6 lessons, and I fell in love with it, not thinking I was going to compete. And then, of course, the studio owner's like, oh, it'd be cool to see you compete. So she put a bug in my ear. And then it just evolved from there. And I went to my first dance competition 3 years ago. And it was just like, wow, this is scary, but it's awesome. And it's just electric when you go there. It's just, you get to be all dressed up, the makeup, the hair, the costume and everything, and the camaraderie between the other dancers. You're competing against each other on the floor, but you build a friendship off the floor.
I like that. You're competing with each other
on the floor,
but building a friendship off it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. And what was it like? Can you remember that first dance class?
My first dance class was, what the hell am I doing?
What'd you wear?
If we go back to my very, very first dance class, like ever, I think I came from work, so I was wearing like dress pants and a nice blouse and everything. And I think I wore Converse because I had no dance shoes.
And then by the second class, had you gotten your shoes and you were
it took me a couple of months to get the shoes, but
those Capizios are not cheap.
Exactly. Actually, you had Capizios as my first brand that I bought. Turns out they didn't actually fit me properly, but I got a new pair just recently, last year, that are fantastic. They're a brand from England, and they're kind of like sparkly on the straps, and it's just like, oh, these feel so good.
What are they called? Can you tell me? Because
international dance shoes.
Okay.
Taking notes over here.
Yeah. Because they've had Capizio, they've had different brands, and
and another good one is Aida from Russia.
Aida. They've actually started. One of them started with choir, and he had them wear the dance shoes because some of the numbers that they do is kind of show choiry, and so they might dance. And then it just progressed from that. It's like once they got bitten by that bug, it wasn't going. They didn't have a choice. They do swing dance and other types of ballroom, but that's swing dance and salsa is and cha-cha. Yeah, kind of really doing a lot, but they're younger.
Cha-cha translates over going from my style to, I guess, my style is called international, and we call the other ones with salsa, merengue, bolero. That's what we call the American style. So there's American or social style, and then there's the international one, which is the one you see on Dancing with the Stars. You see at the ballroom competitions. Like if you Google like Paso Doble, which is what I've been working on lately in my dance lessons. So that is like the bullfight dance, which is
yeah. So do you ever watch the footage afterwards and wonder who that person is on the screen? Or
I do that, and sometimes I go back and I watch old dance competitions. And right now it's hard for me to watch my first dance competition because I've progressed so much in the past 3 years. I just look and I'm like, I was not prepared for that, but I mean, good for me for going out there. And then I watch back video of just the practice of watch back of a routine that I've been working on. And I'm like, okay, this is just me working on a routine. And I'm like in my usual clothes. I'm in my practice shoes and everything, and there's no music, but I'm like, okay, even just doing this so I can make sure I remember my steps, I've progressed. And so it's nice to see how things evolve.
Well, and I'm sure you have music in your head now.
Yeah, exactly.
You're always hearing the counts and the beats.
Yeah, it was, I've gotten my brother on that too, because he watches Dancing with the Stars. Sometimes he comes over to watch it occasionally. And so we were in a kickboxing class on Monday, and the Pirates of the Caribbean comes up remixed, and he just looks at me and he comes by me, he's like, Paso. And I'm thinking, yeah, but not this remix. And so that's a bad thing, is that now when I listen to like popular music, I just think, I'm like, what could I practice to that? Have I done that in a dance competition? And so it's hard because, especially if it comes on Spotify and I'm coding, I'm like, okay, don't get up and start practicing on your code. So maybe I just need to listen to classical music when I'm coding so I don't have that problem.
Yeah. So I bet you've also looked back at your code and thought the same thing.
Oh, yes. Even over the past 9 months that I've been at my job, I look at the stuff I did when I first got there and I look at the stuff like I've done this week and I'm like, okay, what was I thinking there? Good thing I commented then. And so it's just an evolve as you learn like how the client works, how you learn what your colleagues like and everything, and you just refine through trial and error.
Right. Progression.
Yeah.
Iterate or die. So, like, I feel like we're at this moment, you know, where I just want to break. I just want like all of this to come together. The katas, the routines, the discipline, the grace that you give yourself. How does that change in WordPress? How does that change your approach to WordPress and the WordPress community?
That's a really good question. And I would say is that having all that, it just gives me the courage to go forth and to do something new and to explore. I'm in the process right now of becoming a community deputy. I'm working through that very, very slowly. And I never thought that I would do that. And it just, I don't know what it is, but having the background of just having the, I guess, the power, just having tried so many new things and knowing I'm like, okay, it won't hurt if I fail. So the worst thing that could happen is people say no or something breaks and then you revert back. And I'm like, okay, you know what? No loss, no gain, or whatever the phrase is. And so I'm just like, okay, let's get involved more. So I'm just gives me more encouragement to dive into areas of WordPress, both in the code and just in the community that I never would normally have done if I hadn't done all this other stuff.
Good answer. And how does that help you to encourage others to start their journey?
I don't want to make it like sound vain, but sometimes I'm just like, hey, look, if I can do this, you can do it too.
But that is Yan can cook, so can you. That's what I say, the same thing. Like, if I could do it, you can do it.
Right. That's not vanity. That's just the way it is, you know, and letting people know that it is accessible to them, because there's nothing magical about Miriam that's making her able to do this. She's just dedicating the time and the work and getting over the fear.
Yeah.
And the grit.
Yes.
It's all about the hard work. It's really just comes down to perseverance and hard work. And that's what I tell like the kids at the dojo. That's what I tell some of, like, we had a couple months ago, I was doing an intro for an adult who had just started. No, it wasn't that. I was 2 yellow belts, couldn't make their normal belt test. So I was asked to conduct their belt test for them because I guess I was the other black belt there who had the most experience running belt tests. I don't know what my sensei was thinking. But anyways, I could see that they were nervous. I'm like, look, this is your first belt test. We've all been there. Just don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're ready to do this. And they both did fantastic. And I'm like, you did great. I can see that this is the stuff that's going to help you bring it to the next level. So especially when I teach, I never say that you're doing a bad job. I always encourage, I'm like, that's great. If you want to bring it to the next level, this is good. But if you're finding it difficult, let's dial it back.
Right.
That's what yoga taught me. I need to get back to it, but like, it seems so overwhelming. But everybody that I talk to says, oh, if you can't plank on your wrist, because I can't, it just hurts my wrist way too bad, then you can do it on your forearms.
Yep.
And you can modify things according to your body.
You have to do what's right for you. Don't compare yourself to others. My sensei says that a lot. I mean, Sensei Dom, if you're watching this, I mean, I take that into what you say to us all the time is, don't compare yourself to others. Do what's right for you and modify what you need to do.
Yeah, that's definitely. I want to get back to yoga in the park because when I go there, there's so many different. There's me, There's somebody that just started. There's somebody who just came back from a surgery. And then there's people who can do handstands like that.
Yeah.
But we're all together.
Learning.
No, we're together, but we're independent.
Yep.
And
that makes perfect sense.
And we're not competing with each other. I like how they say you're learning your own practice. It's your practice, so do it whichever way you want to.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can't do it, and I just do the happy baby, or not the happy baby, the one where you're like basically on your stomach.
Yeah, child's pose? Is that what
Child's pose, yeah, thank you. Not the happy baby. That's on your back. But, you know, there's been times where I was just like, Savasana, that's my favorite. I could do that, you know. And that's the thing is like, in my own personality, I'm like something's better than nothing person. But in tech, we're so like, if the problem with coding, I'm like this with spelling, but with code, if it's wrong, it's not going to work.
Or if you get a semicolon and you're kind of
right. But that's why you have tools to guide you, and you have resources that you can look something up with, or you know, you have people even in the WordPress community that you can turn to and say, can you take a look at this? Because I know I've got the general idea, but I think there's something that for some reason it's not resolving. You know, I'm not getting the desired result.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why I tell like junior programmers, like, find a mentor. Either through peer programming or find a mentor. Like, I was working at a job when I didn't get to work with WordPress for about 10 months. And my manager, the first manager I had, was just like, yeah, so you can do front-end stuff, but hey, you're going to learn .NET, and I'm going to come and sit down with you as you figure this out. I'm like, what? And he did. He came out of his office, and I had an empty desk beside me, and he came up, and we did something very basic in .NET, and haven't touched .NET in over a year, but if I had to do it again, I have the basics thanks to this man who sat down beside me, and it's called peer programming. And when he was in the office, I would be like, hey, what do you think of this? And he called it, I think, either the rubber duck or the stuffed animal peer programming principle or something, where I just bounce stuff off of him. And sometimes that's all you need too, is just somebody to be like, hey, what do you think of this?
Right. That encouragement gives you the courage to try new things.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have attempted or even thought to do before.
Yeah. So, can you tell us some of your tools? We have a few minutes left, and normally we end the show as like tools and tips.
Yeah.
So we'd love to know any kind of tools that you use for your workflows or whatever, you know.
Well, Stack Overflow is one of my best friends. So if something is off, I usually try and Google it, and I end up on Stack Overflow. When I'm using external libraries, I reference the documentation that is provided, and luckily most of the libraries I use are very well documented, so I'm able to go through that. Another thing is comments in code. So code blocks and everything, and that actually helps too. And sometimes I grab example code. If I find something on the internet, I find a demo or an example or a JS fiddle, and then that's like, hey, that's how it's supposed to work. Okay, I can take it by piecemeal and put it into my code and everything. And then there's sometimes just pinging somebody that you know who has that and be like, hey, theoretically, this is what I'm trying to do. This is how I'm thinking of doing it. So again, going back to the mentor and the peer programming and just having somebody else around, just getting that second set of eyes or third set of eyes on it. Not so much a tool, but
no, that is a tool.
Yeah, it's that lifeline question, right?
Yeah.
Because mentorship is so important in life. And that's why I thought, look, she's a sensei. She teaches kids. She's in the WordPress community. You're also an organizer.
Yeah, I am speaker lead for Ottawa. Yeah, we're just in the beginning processes of planning for WordCamp Ottawa 2018. We're just working out venue details right now, but I will be speaker wrangler for Ottawa.
Fantastic.
And so as soon as we have details, we will be releasing them.
Great.
And we're looking in the summer.
Speaker wrangler, how do you go about that process? Do you do the blind selection? Are you grooming people to be able to speak?
This is my first year as speaker wrangler, so I need to connect with our previous speaker wrangler who is now lead. So I'm going to be bugging Sean quite a bit, but he's already aware of that. So in the past, we have had our submissions, and then we got together, like last year, we got together at a restaurant nearby, and we just sat down, and we didn't do a blind selection, but we had a spreadsheet of, we didn't care about the name, we cared about the title talk.
Yeah.
The content, and if we had like too many plug-in talks or something like that. So that's how we based our speaker selection, was based on not even so much about the title, because the title you could always change, but the description. So my advice, if you're going and wanting to apply to speak at a WordCamp, is make sure that your description is good and don't just like throw that in there, because you'll be surprised with how that could be a deciding factor or not. Is
it about length, or is it about
content? It's not so much about length of the description. I mean, if it's long, yeah, it's going to take us a while to read through it, but
not being vague, you mean?
Exactly. It's if you can be
specific,
but concise, like everything in the world when you're writing things down.
Well, not everything. Copywriting, persuasive copywriting is repetitive.
Yeah.
But by nature.
Yeah, okay. A lot of things.
Documentation. Documentation. Specific, concise. It's a pitch. You only have so much time. So one of the things that Jen and I were doing last year, and we should probably do this again in Women Who WP's Facebook group, just throughout the year, but we were encouraging women to apply to speak at WordCamp US. And we were helping people brainstorm their pitches. Is that something that you are open to with the people in your community, Miriam?
Oh, definitely. And I'm also part of a diversity outreach training
by Jill
that Jill Binder is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just going through that. And so eventually I'm going to be leading a workshop here. Again, it's all boils down to finding the time to do that. So I have all the resources. I just need to find the time, and we just need to encourage, because I know Montreal last year or the year before was trying to really push that. And Catherine had said something to me or had posted something about it. Her or Shannon, I forget who had mentioned it about it, but I want to see that in Ottawa as well, and to see if we can get to at least a 50-50 ratio. That would be fantastic, but we're a small camp, so we'll have to see what happens. Yeah, but we definitely want to encourage women to, especially first-time speakers, to just try it.
Yeah, and for sure in WP Blab's Facebook group, any of us will help anybody who's watching at home or later brainstorm on any topic at all.
For any camp.
For any camp.
Yeah.
I should have said that like 100 years ago, but like, so I know Jen asks this a lot, like she usually takes you're a single gal without children like I am, right?
Yeah.
So it sort of feels like you have all this extra time because you don't have children, but you fill it up with hobbies. So I'm going to ask you the question she asks moms, but from our point of view. How do you balance your hobbies? Because I was doing karaoke, and then I was doing side work, and I had a hustle, and I was traveling, and I was trying to date, and it feels like I think I'd be less busy if I had kids. Like, how are you making those work-life balance choices when you have so many hobbies?
Lots of sleep. I make sure I get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. And it's just a matter of having to pick and choose my battles. Like, I have a boss who is fantastic about making sure that you have a work-life balance. And so I'm very lucky that I very rarely have to do overtime. But if I do, I've always said, I'm like, hey, you let me go work out, you let me go to my dance lesson or to the karate dojo, I'll do whatever you need to do for coding. And so that has helped. And then luckily I have the weekends where I have this extra time. So that's where I do my socializing. I see my friends. I go to my dad's for dinner or something. And it all just falls into place magically.
I love that.
And like Bridget, you don't have children, but behind you, I see someone on the wall who is a key part of your life.
Yes, my dog Sasha. I adopted a rescue dog about 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago now, when he was a year old. So he's a little terrier, Jack Russell Corgi mix, but he's like so quiet. Like, yeah, I haven't heard anything from him because I believe, yep, he's on the couch right now, just lying down.
Yep, that's my dog. I adopted him when he was 7 months old from a rescue. I love my dogs. I know. I feel guilty for leaving my dog when I travel on the weekends.
I know, and I'm lucky my brother lives so close to me, and my brother and his roommate luckily watch Sasha, my dog, when I have to go out of town. And so it's like, I'm glad I have that community around me. But if I didn't have anybody to watch my dog, I would not be going anywhere outside of Ottawa.
Yep. That's me. I had to turn a WordCamp down because my dog sitter wasn't available. I'm like, it's all about the dog sitter. She rules my world.
Exactly. They may not be our human children, but they're our furry children.
Yeah. I just think it's so awesome how, I don't know. I just love you. I'm so glad you decided to stay up at some ridiculous hour to come and hang out with us.
That's not that bad. I mean, if it was 1 or 2 a.m. my time, that would be pushing it. But
I took an hour nap to do this show. It started at 7. So,
our last show was with Taco from the Yoast team.
Oh,
and so he was up and ready at 4 a.m. his time, you know.
Okay, that's impressive.
Live TV. So, Miriam, can you tell people a little bit about how they can find you, more about you on the internet, and that kind of thing? And we'll
So my website is miriamgoldman.ca, and because .com is being squatted on, and I'm Canadian. I'm on Twitter at Miriam Goldman, so my full name except without the A and the M. And then I'm also on Instagram if you want to see a lot of pictures of my dog and random dance pictures and food pictures, and that's Dancing Sensei.
Okay, I knew it was Dancing Sensei, but that was your Instagram. I was
That's my Instagram.
She's Dancing Sensei, but okay, I got it wrong.
That's a great handle.
I love that so much.
I had to do that when I was like...
Did you get it on Twitter too, just so you could have it?
No, but I should.
You should.
And then just tell them to go see you at Miriam Goldman. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna do that.
I love Dancing Sensei. It's just so cool. It's so you.
Yeah,
you're eclectic, you're fun, you're disciplined, you're encouraging, you're a teacher, you're a lifelong learner. And the show is better because of it. The WordPress community is better because of it. North America is better because of it.
Hopefully international soon. Like my goal is probably not going to work for 2018, but my goal for 2019 is, I'm turning 35 at the end of this year. So for my 35th year, I'm going to go forth and apply to International WordCamp. So
yes.
2019, I'm going to try for London. I'm going to try if any of the other countries have
WordCamp Europe, so we can see you.
I will try for WordCamp Europe in 2019. I can't get out in 2018 because it's too close to a dance competition.
Right.
But I'm hoping if I can find any other countries that have English tracks, then I'm going to do that. Or maybe I should actually try and work on my French and go to Paris.
Yeah, like Carl's have been presenting in Spanish.
I know. I didn't know that he was that good in Spanish. I'm like, okay, I know he's francophone and I know he's like fluently bilingual, but he's trilingual. Like, whoa.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Although maybe he's more than that, but Carl, if you know more than the 3 languages, I'm sorry, but I only know about your English, French, and Spanish.
But still, like, I love how in the WordPress community, we all encourage each other to be lifelong learners.
Yeah. And it's great how through that you can make such good friendships and everything. Like, I think that's why I like getting involved in this, is because it reminds me of my friendships from karate. It's like, age doesn't mean anything, especially with WordPress. Location doesn't mean anything. And if you're willing to learn and if you're willing to try, you can find kindred spirits.
Oh my gosh, that's the perfect way to end this show.
Yes.
But I have to ask one more question, because now I didn't realize which came first, the chicken or the egg, WordPress or karate?
Actually, learning WordPress came first, but then my deep involvement with karate came first. So karate community came second, but learning WordPress came first.
Wow. Okay. Jen, can you tell people how they can find you?
Yes, they can find me at Jen Blogs for You on LinkedIn or Twitter, and need someone to blog or need someone to.com if you're looking for my website.
All right, I'm Bridget Willard. This has been Community Connections on the WP Watercooler Network. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, press thumbs up twice. Don't forget to share on all the socials, comment. We love to hear what you think about this show and other shows. Do you have any guests that you would like us to have on Community Connections or Blab or WP Watercooler? Also, WP Watercooler is looking for sponsors. So you could have had your company named right here. Instead, I'm going to say, go check out BridgetWillard.com, and thanks for sharing. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Come on, stop.